All right, we're going to go in and get started because it is 6 o'clock. Hello, scholars. Welcome to week 4 of Zoom. Can you believe that we are almost halfway through this course? Time is really passing by fast. One moment, someone's trying to get in. Based on the quality of your assignments, I can tell that a lot of learning is taking place. We just got started. If you just logged in, so I'll mute you so that you don't have to do it on your end. And so we just got started, just going through the welcome and said, welcome everybody to week 4, which means we're halfway done with our course. You guys have been really working hard. I thoroughly enjoyed grading your assignments and seeing all the learning that's taking place. So I hope everyone is being safe and doing well. We are in a tough season right now, but I know we're gonna get through it. So if you can do anything, please, 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 please stay safe. So let's dive in. We don't really have housekeeping to do this week, so we're gonna just go straight to reflection because I want to reflect on some things. I want to go all the way back to week 2 assignment when we talked about the in-school factors and the out-of-school factors with that presenter pipeline chapter 2. Last week when we talked about it and discussed it and kind of highlighted some stuff with chapter 2, I like sharing experiences because I like people to know, or I like my students to know that things, when we're talking about Title I schools and we're talking about urban city schools, when we're talking about low performing schools, when we're talking about low socioeconomic status schools, anything is possible at these schools. These kids can succeed, they can achieve, they can do everything the kids can do at a magnet school. So I love sharing my experiences because I have very strong experiences leading those schools and turning those schools around. And so I talked about how leaders should make sure that they are really, really using Title I funds appropriately, where they are allocating funds to just make sure kids are exposed to outside of their neighborhood things. And that was one of the factors of the limited geographical experiences. And so I want to go back to that because there were some things I didn't share that I would like to share about how we made some things happen around that, because we knew our kids came with very limited experiences and exposures to beyond the radius of the community. We're talking about even going 5 and 10 minutes away. Our kids just did not have those exposures. So as I led an elementary school, a pre-K school, and then a pre-K 5 school, you guys, I forgot to mention that it was a non-negotiable for my teachers. My teachers were required to take kids on field trips. So they had to take them at least on 5 field trips within a school year. I made sure that the funding was there for the pay for the travel and all those things, but they had to provide them with those experiences. And so I want to talk about that a little, because when we're talking about field trips, it wasn't just for fun. These always connected to learning experiences and just giving them that exposure, but it was a requirement at my school that they took them on field trips. Another thing that we did was we partnered with our local art gallery. In my the first year, the first 3 years where I was at the pre-K 3 school, I called my 3rd graders my seniors because that was the highest grade on the campus. I built a partnership with the art gallery where my kids can go to school for 2 weeks, school away from school. So they'll be bused into my school, and then I'll bust them out to the art gallery. Their teachers will be at the art gallery waiting on them, and they'll have school there for 2 weeks and never have to have school at the campus. But it provided them with those outside resources and experiences that they would not normally get just in their neighborhood and not going anywhere. So it kind of just broadened their horizons. Most of them had never been to a real art gallery. The experiences were rich. The learning was rich. It was connected to an arts curriculum, but it was a good experience for our kids. With that, and that was just building partnerships with outside resources. Sometimes, you guys, we kind of put limits on our kids because we are scared to ask for things. We are scared to go and seek partnerships. We are scared to go involved and seek community involvement to actually get back into the community and come into our schools. Only thing you have to do, you guys, is kind of ask. And when you're asking for these things, they can say yes or no, but kids deserve those kind of experiences. I'm trying to make sure I cover it all this time. And so now we're going to, I know that was years ago, 5 years ago to be exact, but now we are really, really deep into this Tier 1 curriculum stuff. And all subjects, all core areas have Tier 1 standards that we have to achieve. And so a lot of times you hear leaders say, oh, we don't have time to waste, and we can't get behind in the curriculum and all those things. And yes, some of that is true, but you guys, I will be honest, my first year, my second year, my third year as a principal for pre-K3 school, we had adopted a new math curriculum, tier 1 curriculum, and a new ELA curriculum. My kids were gone every month somewhere. We went something. I took them places every single month, and my kids blew the roof off state testing during those times. So I really push on leaders when they say we got to protect instructional minutes. If those experiences are connected to instruction where I can take you somewhere, then come back and tie that into my curriculum and the learning, you guys, you're not missing a beat with that. I think it's our job as leaders, and it's also our job as teachers, and especially you guys who are now going through this program and who's going to become teachers or who are already in the classroom teaching and want to come and inspire leaders, and also actually getting on being part of your school's leadership teams, you guys, that you advocate for these experiences for our kids who we know do not get out of their neighborhoods, who come to us with a limited exposure. It's our job to advocate and provide these experiences for those kids. If we don't, you guys, we are truly doing them a disservice in the long run. So I just wanted to go back and reflect on that and let you know some things that worked, and I know worked because our school did and improved great results and success. So now let's reflect on the principal leader interview. After grading all of them, I always pull out trends. So I'm going to talk through some trends. I'm not going to talk through everybody's paper, but I'm going to talk through some trends. So one trend I noticed that most leaders that was interviewed, some people interview principals, the resource person, the assistant principal, discipline, whoever that leader was you interviewed. Most of them say that they don't have a choice but to use culturally responsive approaches and strategies because of the makeup and the demographic of their school. So that was really good to hear, but I'm going to make a connection to that in just a minute. Also, most of them, when it got to the zero tolerance, it was situational. And I like seeing that it's situational and that the whole school discipline plan is not zero tolerance, or we are heavily zero tolerance, and it doesn't leave room for flexibility. And so it's kind of like a watered down effect, or that upside down triangle, where we get to that school, starting at the school and starting at the classroom, it should be a lot of flexibility, where it's basically to no zero tolerance. And as you draw in, then once you get to the bottom, which hits the school level, school-wide, there should be some policies that are kind of zero tolerance. And I'm thinking about things like to the extreme, like guns and drugs and all that kind of stuff. Of course, there's zero tolerance. But when we're going into a classroom, talking about a culturally responsive classroom, talking about a culturally responsive behavior, discipline policy, a culturally responsive teaching, you guys, there should be lots and lots and lots of flexibility, because all kids are different. And so you don't want to put those zero tolerance policies in place and box kids in, and if a kid that you notice just having a bad day has to suffer the same major consequences that a kid who's always in trouble and all those kind of things. So it's very important that we really try to stay away from those zero tolerance policies. And so I was glad to hear that most leaders that you guys interviewed really feel the same way, that it's situational, it's based on extreme cases. The next big trend that I saw was the equitable over equality. That's a very important, especially I'm going to make a connection during this time, that we provide those equitable experience for our kids, where everybody do not get the same thing. It's based on what are the needs of the kids. Say, for instance, and just we're talking about this, most schools have had a sign out or electronic device sign out for kids. When we give every child or every household one technology, one piece of technology or electronic device, you guys, that's what's called equality, because everybody's getting the same exact thing. But when we look at how many students are in that household, and this one family probably got 10 kids to go to school, so I'm going to give them 3 devices. And this family probably got four kids go to school, so I'm going to give them 2. And this family only probably got 1 kid that's enrolled in our school, so I'll give them 1. That's when it becomes equitable, because now I'm being fair and everybody's not getting the same thing, but at the same time, I'm meeting the needs of all of the kids. And so I was glad to hear that a lot of principals talked about culturally responsive means being equitable, which it really does. I'm looking at all kids, and I'm catering to the needs of all kids. And then the big trend that goes back to week 1, week 2, week 3, and you're going to see this trend all the way to week 7 is relationships. Getting to know your students, all students. That is you guys, when you're thinking about cultural responsive, if you don't take anything away from this class, make sure you take away relationships. That is the biggest piece of being culturally responsive, whether that's teaching or discipline or management, classroom management. It's the relationships. And so a lot of the principals, a lot of the leaders talked about, I have to build those relationships. My staff have to build those relationships. And so some of the principals, I know that the culturally responsive term kind of threw them off, and I was very, very glad to see the transparency of the principals say, well, I don't know what that means, but I can make some connections. And then when they looked it up, their connections were exactly what the term actually means. So they was able to make sense of the term using keywords. So those were some trends that I really, really saw. Now I want to make a connection on some things, you guys, because what I realized in those interviews that most of the leaders knew what cultural responsive teaching and what cultural responsive management, what those two things were. Most of the leaders knew those things, but it's very important. It's so important that they don't just know them. They are really, really being intentional and about making sure that their campuses, that your campuses reflect those culturally responsive teaching and trainings and all those things. It's one thing for the leader to know it, but if it's not the culture of our school, we still are doing kids a disservice. So again, as you push, because I'm going to push you guys, as you go through this and get this learning and become better teachers and begin to get on leadership teams and also move into leadership roles, you guys, it's very important that we really, really, really seek to build our staff around cultural responsive teaching and cultural responsive strategies and techniques, especially during this time, and especially if you're working in an urban school district. It's so important that cultural responsive is heavy in those environments. So now it brings us to the trends from our week 3 assignment, and when asking those questions on about what do you see, why do teachers leave the profession? That was I thoroughly enjoyed reading that. It was like your writers was like popcorn to me. I was just eating it up. It was so good because you guys, that's what I find a lot of traveling across the nation, providing trainings and workshops to leaders and teachers, that most people, they'd had that philosophy, oh, I just love kids and I went into this profession because I love kids, and then in 1 to 3 years they're going out the door and doing something totally different because of something that did not go right at the school. And so I just wanted to pull out and see what your thoughts were around it. There was no right or wrong answer. Some of you went very in depth, but again, most of us normed around the right stuff, and that's the good part. It was around the right stuff. The lack of support and being culturally disconnected. You guys, that is so important. And that's the reason why we're losing teachers by the herds, because of those things. The lack of support. Leaders are not doing a good job of supporting teachers, new teachers, novice teachers, struggling teachers with support. And what I do find in most of my schools, the 14 schools, the leaders is doing a good job of supporting them around instructional stuff. And most of the time, the teachers don't even need the instructional piece. They need the cultural responsive piece with the discipline and the behaviors. And that's the piece that leaders do not do enough supporting around. And so it's very important that we understand that, again, as we begin to become better teachers, move into leadership roles, and also sit on leadership teams, that we really keep that at the forefront. And then being disconnected culturally, you guys, and in some of our posts, you guys, I know a lot of times we see that most of our urban city schools do have a high population of Caucasian teachers and a high population of African-American children, black and brown children. But you guys, and a lot of times in a lot of my schools, it's kind of different, because I find that a lot of African-American teachers are culturally disconnected from kids too, because just because I'm black does not mean I grew up like these kids. So therefore, I cannot understand them. And if you went through and read comments in our forum, I gave my own personal experiences with that. And that's one reason why I've fallen in love and have always done transformation work, because once I got a chance to really connect the kids, I never wanted to stop teaching this population of kids or stop working with this population of kids. But again, I grew up extremely poor, but my mother valued school. So I was intrinsically motivated to go to school. And I went to a historical Black college for my undergraduate degree. I did all of my field experiences at an accelerated lab school where 95% of the kids were on grade level. All the kids wore clean uniforms. All the kids paid attention in class. Discipline was not an issue. And then I did the total opposite. I was pushed to go do my field experience in Urban City here in Shreveport, and I was brought here to do my student teaching, and it was a cultural shock. I was culturally disconnected because I had no understanding of those kids. I didn't understand why a 14-year-old kid was in the 4th grade. I didn't understand why it's a uniform policy in place and kids didn't wear uniforms. I didn't understand why 14-year-olds could barely write their names. I was just so culturally disconnected from those. And it wasn't until the principal called me in and talked to me about it, because she knew that I was miserable. And she talked to me about it and say, hey, I need you. She said, you're a male, you're a Black male, and I know that you got what I need. I need your help. And it wasn't to that point where I took it upon myself to really begin to build relationships with those kids. And once those relationships came, I began to understand all of that. I understood that they didn't have washers and dryers and water cut off and electricity cut off. I began to understand all of those things. I began to understand ACEs and all those things on why these kids do what they do. But it wasn't until I built those relationships. So it was really good to read those you guys posts with those can't connect with the students or can culturally disconnected. And again, I really want to highlight the point that it's not only the opposite race that's disconnected and culturally disconnected. A lot of African Americans are disconnected as well because we did not have those experiences. Another thing you guys was a trend was the lack of training and need training. That is so important. I mean, now that most states are tier 1, strictly tier 1, all tier 1, we are heavily providing support around instruction, and we are losing that piece that's really needed, where that behavior, the management, we're not getting enough support in that, and we are losing some very strong teachers. So now I want to move into talking about chapter 3. I know this is week 4, but I want to talk a little about some key points in chapter 3. Chapter 3 really went deep into being reflective. It said critical. They used the word critical. So they really want you to reflect. And you guys, this just helps us to understand the why. It establishes a sense of purpose. Why we teach the way we do, why we discipline the way we do. Once we understand our why, you guys, our what becomes different. When we truly understand why we are doing it, what we do becomes to change and it becomes different. And so just reflecting on those things, and we're going to talk about how teachers should reflect and how teachers should groom the students to reflect through experiences. And my thing is, as I tell anybody, if you are not reflecting, you are not growing. That's a child, that's a student, that's an adult. You have to reflect in order to grow. And so it talked about building class community, those caring environments, which chapter 4 is going to really hit on, high student engagement in classroom. But the next one I really want to talk about is positive framing. That's that motivation, that's motivating, that's correcting students, that's inspiring them, encouraging them, you guys. And also you using positive framing to really fix inappropriate behavior. And so a lot of times how that looks is that means I positive narrate the kids who are doing it. Jason, I like how you are on target. Mary, I like how you're doing this. I like how you looking neat. And then we go and say, I need you to those students who needs to be corrected. It never comes out as a negative when we're doing that. So positive framing is very important. But the book really pushed positive framing for you to make sure that kids are inspired and empowered. And so that's the big piece with the book. It wants you to highlight optimism and enthusiasm, where teachers are so pumped up and fired up with what they're teaching and so connected to their students that their students feel like superheroes when they're actually doing lessons, because that teacher has made that kid feel like they can do anything that's out there. Anything that I throw at them, they can be able to do it, because I pumped them up and built them up, built their self-esteem up, built them up with a sense of belonging, built them up with enough of caring that they just feel they can do any task I put before them. And you guys, That is so important with Tier 1 because Tier 1 is a very, very complex curriculum. Tier 1 standards are very complex standards. Most of our kids that we are servicing in Title I schools, in urban city schools, are Tier 2 or Tier 3 students. They are not on a Tier 1 level, so that means they're going to struggle the time as soon as they come into our classroom. I cannot water down those standards. I cannot water down this curriculum, or else that kid is going to suffer greatly on state testing. So therefore, I got to make sure I'm using that positive framing and making this kid feel like they're the most important person and the most smartest kid in this room, so that they can get through and grapple through this tough curriculum and these tough standards and really enjoy doing it. They are not shutting down when work is thrown at them that they can't do, because I built them up so with positive framing and with my cultural responsive atmosphere. So now let's move and close off to chapter 4, you guys. With chapter 4 is focusing on classroom management again as that caring environment, the environment where you really transform students to scholars and to superheroes, where they feel that they can do and they're empowered that they can do anything. So it's going to talk about, I think, 4 pieces of it. It's going to talk about how you make that classroom student centered, where that student has a lot of ownership in that classroom. It's going to talk about persistent practices, and this is a big one that I'm gonna close with in just a minute. It's going to talk about high expectations and rigor, what I just got through talking about. With our Tier 1 standards, you guys, it's very important that we understand we can't water stuff down and we have to let kids struggle. But if I don't build those relationships, if I don't empower and inspire and motivate my kids, they are going to shut down when it comes to rigor. And what I find when I'm doing learning walks in my schools, a lot of teachers are watering down stuff because, one, they don't want kids to struggle, but number 2, they haven't built that strong, caring environment where kids are willing to take educational risks and struggle. So it's very important that we understand that. And then it closes by talking about the partnerships that we need to have with the community and the parents. I want to hop right back over to persistent practices, you guys. You guys, that means that I'm loving and I'm caring, but I'm holding kids accountable. I'm holding them accountable. And I don't have to be mean to hold you accountable. I love you and I care for you, but I'm going to hold you to high expectations because I know that you can do it, and I'm going to hold you accountable. If I set these rules in place, it's very important that, hey, you're going to abide by these rules. It's very, very important that we do not let kids establish the culture of our classroom, because 90%, or not, I shouldn't say 90%, 100% of the time, if we allow kids to establish the culture in our classroom, it's not going to be the culture that we really desire and want. We got to make sure that we are establishing that strong culture in our classroom, that loving, that caring culture in our classroom, and then it is just exudes from us, and then our kids become to adapted to it and be able to model those same approaches and techniques. So your assignments for this week, you guys, again, you have, we're now going into videos. So you have a couple of videos to do and watch. You have to read chapter 4, respond to the responsive question with that. And then you have a learning reflection that deals with your views are based on your school and your views on families and partnerships within your school. And so those are all informed in the forms. And a lot of people have already finished it. I've seen a lot of people are going on and have finished other things in other weeks and just knocking out the assignments. I'm sure you know no more assignments won't be added because we have enough. So you can work ahead anytime you want. And once you're done, you're done. But I'll constantly go week by week by week by week because it's a setup in the flow of our actual course. At this time, if you have questions, I'll open up for questions. If you don't have questions, that's pretty much all I had. I really, really wanted to hit some important things in those chapters and just make some connections on some of that chapter learning. You guys, I'm very, very impressed with the quality of work that you are producing in your forms and your assignments. You guys are going over and beyond to produce quality, and not only that, but give good, solid feedback to one another. I think that's what really builds a learning community and a professional learning community, when we can really give feedback to our peers and it's not taken as criticism. It's not it doesn't come across as disrespectful, inappropriate, but it's good solid feedback to make us better. So at this time, if you have questions, you can unmute your mics and ask questions, and if not, we can end our session by going over our motivational speech, and then you guys be safe and continue to do your work and do good things. So if you got questions, you can unmute and log in.
Okay, Dr. Rainey.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. So, should in our paper, in the 5-page paper, should the 4 elements of effective classroom instruction be incorporated in that paper?
Which week it is? Because I don't have mine pulled up right now.
Week.
I didn't hear you. Oh, I think it's the furrows. Hold on. I think it's. Oh, I think you're back now.
Okay. Week 3 for the surveys that we took.
For week 3 for the surveys, you can include it if you want extras in it, but if you just follow that format, it doesn't have to be included. It's just basically trying to connect it to, hey, what are the trends that I'm seeing based on what I got from the teachers? What are they saying based on that survey? But if you can, my thing is, I'm gonna be honest, I love seeing when students can connect to anything we've done in class. So you can connect whatever they're saying to anything we've done in class, the forms, the videos, the chapters. I just think that builds a strong synthesis when you can connect those things, but it's not a mandate or a requirement.
Okay, because I incorporated it. I just wanted to make sure it was right before I submitted it.
Oh yeah, you I promise you'll be good. You'll be good. Like I'm not that professor that's so critical and just chop up stuff. My thing is what I want y'all to get is the good learning. So no, you'll be good. I really like the quality of things I'm seeing from you guys. So no, you'll be good with that.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? All right, so if you don't got any questions, I'll end with our speech, you guys. Excuses. Excuses are tools of the incompetent. They are used to build monuments of nothingness. Those of us who specialize in them are seldomly capable of doing anything else. Therefore, any day, on today, on tomorrow, I will not make excuses when it comes to talking about culturally responsive teaching and management. Also, I won't make excuses when it's getting this degree because I need you guys to finish this degree and become great leaders. You guys have a great weekend. I know you can't do much but stay in the house and watch Netflix and television and eat, but please, by all means, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.